Alright. Before I go into this, we haven't had any complaints lately. I just, every now and then, I like to reestablish this so people know. When we do the Versus stuff, typically we do it for movies that are already really well known. So they're talked about from beginning to end with spoilers included. I think most people who discover these are, aware of that by now, but just in case, whenever we have, movies that are basically, entirely hinged on their twist, I like to kind of throw out there one more time, by the way, spoilers from beginning to end, totally. Just so that's out there. Unless it's a smaller known movie like Narc that has a really big twist where I say I'll stop here and let you go find Narc and see what that twist is. So just throwing that out there. So we decided to I knew I had to put Memento with something.
Mm-hmm.
Memento had to be talked about at some point. And then for some reason the Machinist kept jumping out at me. And I couldn't really put my finger on why I kept putting those two together. Because the Amnesia thing is actually more of, as far in the Machinist's case, it kind of comes in really late to the plot. And it's kind of a spoiler. But I couldn't really figure it out past that, so I just kind of searched Memento, the Machinist, and I guess people have been comparing these before, so it's not a totally what the fuck why thing, so we're good to go.
It's always good that way.
Okay, so we're going to start with Memento, I think. I hope these don't look too off-center. They totally do to me, but it's the light.
They look fine to me, actually.
Yes, this is obviously the limited edition Memento, so you probably can't tell what the fuck it is unless you're aware of the DVD from a distance. But the title is really, really lightly scratched in there. It's kind of like the inside of my 7 DVD. So yes, we're going to start with Memento, which is it was Christopher Nolan's first kind of high-profile movie. It was his second one after Following. And he really took thriller fans and mystery fans by storm with this concept. That's based off his brother's short story. And yeah, I know something you're going to point out immediately, and yes, it is worth pointing out. Sometimes the really great concepts in movies can be taken back to unsuspecting TV shows.
Yep.
Take, for instance, the Dreamgirl episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, inspiring M. Night Shyamalan to do The Sixth Sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you see Memento's layout, you think that is really, really original, especially for a thriller. This is great. This is going to be a mind-bending puzzle. Awesome. When was that episode of Seinfeld?
Yeah.
It had to be. It was a few years prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how late in the series it was, but yeah. Not saying there was any theft or anything. I'm just saying it takes that concept, and Nolan may have never watched Seinfeld. Actually, that seems pretty likely that he never watched Seinfeld.
He could be a closet Seinfeld fan. You never know.
It's just like how he cast Tom Hardy as Bane without even having seen Bronson.
That's crazy. To know that is true, that is crazy.
So, again, he must just have like a gut feeling for this kind of things or something. So we open the movie, and the very opening scene is literally in reverse. He's just shot Teddy in the back of the head and taken his picture, and the scene is literally going in reverse. Teddy's picture is fading, and then goes back into the camera, and then everything spins back around. The gun flies back up into his hand after he dropped it and stuff like that. And then from then on, this is what the movie's known for, this concept of each scene takes us back, and we're just kind of going in reverse. And it's very interesting how you can pull off a movie like this, where you show the ending of the movie, and you're basically rewinding to the beginning, yet your movie still has a twist in it. It still has a twist at the end. Which is fantastic. And we also have these intercut black and white scenes in between, where Leonard's talking on the phone and kind of giving us exposition on Sammy Jenkins and how he knows where he was before this and how he kind of got to where he was in his position prior to his head injury. And we eventually see... That kind of tends to confuse a lot of people, but it's kind of... Once we get to the end, we realize that it kind of starts with the black and white portions, and then those kind of slowly work their way into the very beginning of the story, and then... before we go further into this, it's worth noting, there's actually like an Easter egg of sorts on this DVD, where if you do some... The menus on this thing are really complex and kind of a pain in the ass when you're just trying to watch the movie, because they actually look like, you know, the psychological tests and shit. But there is an Easter egg in there somewhere where you can actually watch the movie in chronological order.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did do it once as an experiment, and it's very interesting. This might be kind of a criticism. It's very interesting how you can kind of tell the reason it's told the way it is, because when you look at the story in chronological order, there's really not a lot to it at all. It's this concept and this setup and this structure, how it manages to make itself into... Somehow the structure gives it even more of a depth and a personality as an actual movie, because you actually... With Leonard's condition where he can't make new memories and everything is new to him, and he's always in this confused stage and doesn't know where he is, 10 minutes after the fact. It's a really great way to kind of set you in that mindset where when the scene is taking place, you are as well aware of where you are as Leonard is at the time. And that's kind of an ingenious way to do it. And it would have been really, really, gimmicky, probably with another director, and probably would not have been able to come off as well, and would have just come off as a director that thinks he's doing something really clever, but it's just kind of ends up a clusterfuck, and is trying to kind of distract you from the fact that you're watching a shitty movie. That's what would happen in another director's hands, I would imagine, with this concept. And what's really funny is this movie did it so well is normally when innovative movies do stuff like this, they get mimicked over and over and over and over again. Unless it's a really, really obscure, shitty movie that went straight to video and just got completely swept under the rug because it was that bad. I don't recall off the top of my head a movie that has tried to copy this since. Which really says something. It's a concept that's so good that people are willing to say, you know what, I'm not even going to try to put that in my shitty movie because I can't pull that off, and that movie is just too good to try to get away with that. I would be outed immediately, and my movie would be shunned immediately. Unless, of course, you're already doing that to Memento because you saw that Seinfeld episode. But
yes.
Regardless, now, for the most part, this movie has a massive following that people are absolutely in love with. And I could put myself in there, sure. But there are a couple of things every now and then where people really start to think about it, and they start to kind of, try to find things where things don't fit. Because that's another thing that adds to the genius of it, is how well the continuity is done. Because that's a major, major factor in this. But some people try to really search to see if there's, if it's as ingenious as it looks on the outside. And apparently, this kind of baffles me. Apparently, the big question that a lot of people have, as far as holes in the story, is the most popular question to ask is, how does Leonard know he has a condition if he can't make new memories? I thought I think it's pretty obvious to most people, and I thought they kind of spell it out quite often, to the point that where I'm not quite sure why people need to ask that. There's a couple of scenes, I think, where it kind of stands out, I think it's pretty... I mean, a lot of people have, other explanations, but I think the pretty obvious, easy explanation is, that's the whole point of the Remember Sammy Jenkins tattoo. And that's why it's right there on the back of his hand, so that's the first thing he sees when he, his memories basically reset. Because he immediately remembers Sammy's case, and then that's how he figures out, oh, this must be why I have no idea where I am right now. I suppose people can question that with scenes like when he's in Dodd's bathroom and he's like he takes the bottle in and then he's waiting for Dodd to come through and then he just kind of resets and then looks at the bottle and says, I don't feel drunk. How he managed to do that without looking at the tattoo, but he seems like he knows of the condition when it happens, when it resets. Maybe it seems like that people question, but for the most part, I think just the tattoo pretty much explains that as much as it needs to be. Enough for you to be able to watch the movie without it being in the back of your head. It's also worth noting, another big thing in this, obviously, is Guy Pearce's performance. Guy Pearce is really, really great in this. A lot of people consider it his best performance. I would say without a doubt, probably. Because, a lot of people are bigger LA Confidential fans than I am. No, he's really, really great here as far as doing the, he's kind of nervy, but he's also doing the really driven, it's basically a detective story more than anything, where he's kind of made himself this, like this film noir type detective. And how he's able to go from one thing to the other, like how there are moments where he's really, really pushed to his limits, and he can get really, really frantic or really, really start to get out of control. And because of his condition, he'll be on the verge of killing you, and then can immediately go right back into, I'm sorry, who are you? I have this condition, and I don't know who you are. Because people love it when he talks about his condition. The scene at the end where Teddy just goes off on him is... I think I find it funnier than it's supposed to be. And while we're on the subject of Natalie and Teddy, Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano are Natalie and Teddy. And they are also really good in this. Obviously, you can't have a film noir story without the femme fatale in there. And... good lord, Carrie-Anne Moss is evil in this movie. She really, really is. And she plays that really well because she's... half the time you think you can really, really trust her, and then the other half, she's just the most wicked person in the movie, which really says something. And she plays that back and forth really well. I lost what I was doing. I was gonna... Joe Pantoliano's character, Teddy. He's great in everything he does, but in this, I'm not sure what it is he does in this movie, but there's something he does with this character that makes him really fun to watch. He's the one where, obviously, there's this constant thing where, the big question through the whole movie that still remains after the movie is over is how much of a liar is Teddy, or how trustworthy is Teddy. Because it's never really that revealed, because that's, a lot of things that are questioned about this movie are, is there, like, is there a for sure truth in this movie? Because we're never really presented to it. We just have to take Teddy for his word. And Teddy's not exactly the kind of character who has built himself up to be a guy that's just reliable on his word. So, a lot of people leave this movie with a lot of questions. Some people, because there's the big moment at the end there, when Leonard is about to kill Jimmy Grant, or already has, and Teddy just tells him everything that happened. Like, he found the real John G. a long time ago and killed him, and he tells him the whole story about how there is no Sammy Jenkins, Leonard is Sammy, and his wife actually survived the attack, and he killed her the way Sammy accidentally killed his wife in the Sammy story. But there's really no way to tell for absolute sure if this isn't Teddy just being manipulative and all that. So we don't really know. A lot of people, apparently Nolan himself said the popular opinion is to just take Teddy on his word and say that big twist is the real thing. Nolan himself said that, this is fucking Nolan being Nolan, I know this is why people love him and this is why people hate him, but Nolan said that there is an action, like, the movie, somewhere in the movie, there is a reveal that there are little clues in there that tell you what the actual truth is. but only the most attentive viewers will notice it or something like that. I don't know. So I don't know what tiny clues he put in there to say whether or not, Leonard killed the real John G a long time ago, or whether or not Leonard is Sammy, etc. All of that. But that's why I think that's generally another big thing why people are really drawn to this movie, because it's not, you can easily dismiss this movie and say, yeah, it's got an awesome concept, but that's about all it's got going for it, because like I said, when you watch it in chronological order, there's not a whole lot to the story. He has Teddy's license plate number, he tracks Teddy down, but before he goes and does that, he has to take care of Dodd for Natalie, and then he goes and he finds out that it's Teddy, and then he kills Teddy. The end. That's all that happens. It's those other underlying factors, and that whole, you have to question everything, and you don't really know for sure, and you can think about it like till the fucking cows come home, and just... all of that is really what draws people into a movie, and what makes a movie have such staying power that it can do stuff like that. So yeah, there's also some supporting players here I didn't mention. Mark Boone Jr. is the guy that runs the motel, and he has a funny moment where he's rented out 2 rooms to Leonard because once his boss learned of his condition, he said, we might as well try to rip him off and charge him for 2 rooms. He won't know what's going on. And then we have... it's really interesting to see the small Nolan actors, or these actors in a small Nolan movie like this, and then went into like the Batman movies like Mark Boone Jr. And then I always thought it was really random that Thomas Lennon was the Doctor in The Dark Knight Rises. So I was like, how did he get that part? I totally forgot that Thomas Lennon is also Sammy Jenkins' doctor in the flashback scenes. I have no idea how he and Nolan are associated.
That's
I have
interesting.
no idea. But yeah, I totally forgot he was in this.
He was a State fan.
And then we have, obviously in the Sammy flashbacks, we have Stephen Tobolowsky, who's always great. But most people know him from Groundhog Day, I think.
Yes.
I thought he was really great as the teacher in Freaky Friday. Yeah, he's a character actor that's been in a billion movies. And his wife, who is played by Harriet Sampson Harris, I think her name is. And she's like, if you meet the real fans of Memento, they'll go on all day about how she's in the movie for like 3 minutes, but she's like the most memorable character and gives this really unsung hero type of performance, which I can see. I can totally get on board with that. So yeah, there's a lot of things going for this movie than just its concept, but I can get if somebody were to just kind of dismiss it as that's basically what it lives off of. But I and a whole bunch of other people think it's a lot more than that. I wanted to show you real quick what exactly is inside here if you didn't know already. As you can see, this is basically Leonard's file, for sure. I gotta make sure the reflection's not on there. I hope this works out because this is a pain in the ass to get out, and I can just imagine this would be the hardest. Oh, there it is. Where it's actually a lot of things have been redacted and everything. There is a post-it note that reminds you what to do with the movie.
That's awesome.
This clip here has all of Leonard's different files in it. And there's like a whole detail put into them, like that actually come from the scenes in the movie and everything. It's right there. And then, like I was saying though, it's a nice little concept. Like it's a great little gimmick and everything. But like if you go to the, cause you open it and you have, first off, the discs are not labeled. I never remember which one is the goddamn movie and which one is the special features disc. But if you accidentally or intentionally, obviously, go to the special features disc, it is a pain in the ass to get through because you take like actual psychological tests to get to the shit, and it's insane. I think if you go to like the FAQ on IMDb or something, it tells you the path you have to take to get there. But still, it's a really nice DVD, and it's worth that little pain in the ass to have such a thing. It's considered the limited edition, but I'm pretty sure you can find it anyway. The movie has a reputation for a reason, and it's a reputation I can totally get behind, for sure. And then we have The Machinist, which is I wouldn't think near as well known of a movie. There's one thing in particular, you can tell me this. There is one thing in particular the Machinist is really, really well known for.
It has to be Bale's like weight loss.
Bale lost 62 pounds. He weighed 120 pounds when he made this movie. And the thing about it was, this movie was 2004. Meaning, Batman Begins was the very next year.
Mm-hmm.
Which means not only did he go down to 120 pounds, he had to gain all of it back, plus all the muscle, to play Batman the next year. And I guess his doctor actually got on his case and told him he was going to fucking die.
I remember hearing this, actually.
And so he said, fuck you, and he went and lost all the weight for the fighter and gained all the weight for American Hustle. I think American Hustle he might have had help, I think. I don't remember for sure.
Prosthetic fat suit, maybe?
Maybe. Maybe not. I don't remember. He did lose the weight for the fighter.
He's very method, so it's possible.
Yeah, I think he's more concerned with his health now, though. So he's got, like, you know, his kids and everything now. He's got it's insane. But it really, really paid off, because when you see Bale in this movie, he's clearly a guy that is the actual concept of the movie. Like, he's not just kind of, you know, exaggerating or saying anything. Just kind of, you know, speaking, you know, in, you know, colorful language or anything. He looks Jennifer Jason Leigh dead in the eyes and says, I haven't slept in a year. And he hasn't. The dude has just gone through life without sleeping for a year, and he's totally losing his mind and basically living a nightmare, and doesn't know what's what anymore, because these, like, I feel like I can relate to this movie when I've stayed up for like 72 hours. Yeah, an entire year. And he's totally just this stick figure, just kind of, you know, kind of walking through this creepy, hypnotic world that he's created within his mind that kind of, you don't know if it's like a world entirely inside of his mind that has glimpses of the real world, or if it's of the real world that has glimpses inside whatever the fuck's going on in his head. It's hard to tell which is which. But the main problem comes about when he accidentally causes Michael Ironside to lose his arm in a factory accident, the factory that he works in. And after this has happened, he's met this mysterious coworker who apparently he is the only person that can see, named Ivan, who's this big bald guy who just follows him around in a red car and laughs. And has weirdly long teeth. I don't know if the actor actually had those or if those were fake, but he looks very abnormal. I guess that's the purpose. And not to mention that there is something bleeding out inside his freezer, but he won't open the door to find out what it is. And he's getting mysterious post-it notes on his fridge, and one of them now is a game of Hangman that has 4 blanks and an ER on the end of it. And there's 3 different things that could be, and we find out what the one is. What it actually is probably the first one your mind went to. But he's still trying to find... There's still those silver linings in there. And the great thing that Bale does here is he's just made this, you know, shell of a person who's just walking through this nightmare and trying to find, you know, sanity of some sort. And who just cannot sleep. And he's just constantly tired, but he just cannot sleep, ever. So he goes to the airport every day and gets coffee and pie. And there's a waitress that works there that he takes a liking to. And that's the closest thing he can get to a decent reality. But then even that kind of starts to... He's still not quite sure what's what. And there's a really great scene where they go out for Mother's Day. It's her and her son, and they take him to an amusement park. And they go inside this ride, Route 666, of course. And it's just those normal scary rides with just like a skeleton, and there's like a skeleton at a gas pump, and he's just, you know, throwing little quips at it. But then as the ride progresses, it gets really bizarre and weird, and there's, you know, gruesome things happening, you don't know if this ride's just really, really fucked up, or if this is the shit that is just starting to form in front of him because of the year without sleep. We have no idea for sure. However, the thing about it is it doesn't do it in a cheap way, because there are movies that do this shit just kind of out of laziness, where they just kind of throw weird shit at you and think, oh, isn't this, mind-bending, and you think it's one thing, it's going to be another the next scene, and you don't see anything coming. It's not like that bullshit at all, which way too many movies are guilty of. And it does do those obvious, twist maneuvers that a lot of those do, where, obviously the person will know other people in their life, and then it turns out that those people are actually him and stuff like that. The people that he's seeing aren't what he's actually seeing and stuff like that. And there's usually a mystery person that ends up being, actually him. It's all familiar stuff, but this movie actually does it in a way that really, really draws you in. Like I said, it's really, really hypnotic and creepy, and you actually feel like you're within, his putrid, mind-bending puzzle of a world. And not only that, but sometimes it even gets to a point to where it takes the extra mile, and it goes from creepy and hypnotic, and just goes into, it just kind of veers into the absurd at times. Like the particular scene where he's trying to get, Ivan's license plate number to tell them that, just to help, in hopes of tracking him down at the DMV. So they say, well, you may have the license plate number, but we can't, do anything about it unless a crime's been committed, like a hit and run. So Trevor goes outside, walks into the middle of the road, and intentionally gets smacked by a car. And then goes to the police station and says, I've been hit by this car. And it's this really, really absurd thing, because he, flips all the way over it. But it feels like it should be out of place, but it just totally feels in line with just how this world is getting so out of control. After a while, it's just absurd, the whole thing. It really knows something. Brad Anderson's the guy that made it, and he made, I think he made a movie called Trans-Siberian with Woody Harrelson and Ben Kingsley, which is really, really good. And then he made a not-so-good movie called Vanishing on 7th Street that had Hayden Christensen and John Leguizamo in it. It had a really great concept, and it does have some really effective scenes in it. He's a really capable director, and he handles this one really, really well. It's just his movies haven't always come out the greatest. Another great thing about it is the score. The score really, really sets the mood, too, and it's kind of hard to describe. It's basically, the score of a modern thriller, but also with touches of 1940s monster movie kind of score, and it's kind of a combination of the two, and it's really, really effective. So yes, it does a lot of things that a lot of thrillers in this kind of early 2000s area were trying to do with everything. So I think it might be post Fight Club. That might be the issue, where everything has to be not what it seems, and one character is actually both characters, or both characters are actually one character. It's, but this movie did it really well, and really sets a nice atmosphere that really stands out, and it's actually quite memorable among a lot of movies that came out that were like this. Like I said, Bale really shows, just how great and really diverse he can, play parts. And this was he really went for it. And it's not just the weight loss. He really, really made this into a real character. Who's, because when those times come out, like when he's with Maria or when he's with, Stevie, you really feel for his character and want him to get out of this. But at the same time, he'll just turn, and his paranoia gets worse and worse, and he isolates everybody, and you just have no idea what the fuck his problem is, or just how insane he is. But he really, really makes you feel for the character, especially when the final twist finally hits, and you finally realize what his issue has been the whole time. And then you just feel for him, and it comes to a really, really great conclusion, so... it definitely stands out among movies of its, everybody was trying to be this movie for a while, but that psychological movie. But having said that, you know, Memento's its own thing. Memento's its own masterpiece for sure. And is a thrill that's going to stand the test of time for a really long time. And choosing between the two, you know, I'd totally go with Memento, sure. But the Machinist really, really holds its own too. So you should definitely check the Machinist out if you haven't yet, even though you already know a lot about it. But to see it is a whole different thing, I promise. Yeah.
Alright, so ends another edition of Versus. Continue to watch the wrestling content on this channel for the next couple of days. We've got a podcast with WWE Payback with Mr. Entertainment. We got one with Raw the night after. Ashley may or may not be joining us because he's sick right now, so hopefully he'll get better soon. We've got Sip and Snack. We've got NXT Unstoppable, the new takeover that's coming Wednesday. And AJ's movie reviews will be Tomorrowland and Poltergeist on Friday. Saturday Game with Ash Returns. Sunday, a brand new Versus. Your cryptic comment is Teenage Wasteland. We've been wanting to do this one for a while, and let's just say this movie's been talked about a lot on this channel. At least one of them has. So, rewind and watch the other videos and you'll understand exactly what it's going to be. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And AJ, any parting words?
That's it.